The Panama Canal. It's a narrow waterway, but don't let its size fool you. It's also a crucial shipping route, a lifeline for global commerce. This 50-mile channel connects the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, creating a vital link between two major bodies of water. And by connects we mean it saves ships from a treacherous 8,000-mile detour around South America, a journey fraught with peril. Think of it as the difference between taking the freeway and navigating a backroad obstacle course with all its twists and turns, with potholes and pirates. Yes, pirates once roamed these waters, making the journey even more dangerous. This tiny isthmus packs a big punch when it comes to global trade, acting as a pivotal point for the movement of goods. Roughly 6% of all that stuff you buy online, yeah, it probably squeezed through the Panama Canal, making its way to your doorstep. And for the US, it's even more critical, serving as a key artery for trade. Almost 40% of America's container shipments depend on this shortcut, underscoring its importance. So yeah, it's kind of a big deal. The Panama Canal is more than just a waterway. It's a cornerstone of global logistics. But lately, this maritime marvel has become a stage for a different kind of drama, a geopolitical one, where nations vie for influence. And guess who's hogging the spotlight? The usual suspects. That's right, the US and China. These two superpowers are constantly jockeying for position. Because when it comes to global power plays, these two can't resist a good old-fashioned showdown, each trying to outmaneuver the other. Even if it means turning a vital waterway into a metaphorical tug-of-war rope, the stakes are incredibly high. The US has always had a bit of a thing with the Panama Canal. We're talking a century-long thing that involved everything from orchestrating Panama's independence to controlling the canal for decades. But in 1999, the US finally handed over the reins to Panama. You'd think everyone would be cool with that, right? Wrong. Fast forward to today, and the US is acting like a jealous ex who can't stand seeing their former flame move on. Enter China, stage left. As the world's second-largest economy, China has been cozying up to Panama, investing in ports and infrastructure. And the US? Let's just say they're not exactly thrilled about it. Cue the diplomatic standoffs, accusations of Chinese influence, and threats of, well, let's just say taking back control. It's enough to make you want to build a canal just to avoid this whole mess. Remember all that stuff about the Panama Canal being a big deal for global trade? Well, imagine what happens when those waters get choppy. We're talking shipping delays, increased costs, and headaches for businesses worldwide. Think of it as a global supply chain constipation, and nobody wants that. Australia, for example, is already feeling the heat. Their central bank has been sounding the alarm about rising freight costs, partly due to, you guessed it, potential disruptions in the Panama Canal. And they're not alone. Countries that rely heavily on maritime trade are watching this geopolitical drama unfold with bated breath. Because in this interconnected world, when one part of the supply chain sneezes, everyone catches a cold. To understand the current drama, we need a quick history lesson. The Panama Canal wasn't just handed to the US on a silver platter. It involved some, shall we say, creative diplomacy. In the early 1900s, the US really wanted that canal. But Panama at the time was part of Colombia, and they weren't keen on the idea. So, the US did what any reasonable world power would do. They supported a Panamanian independence movement. And by supported we mean they sent warships to intimidate Colombia into recognizing Panama's independence. With Panama safely in their pocket, the US got their canal, and they controlled it for the better part of the century. Thanks but no thanks, Panama pushes back. In 1999, after decades of Panamanian protests and international pressure, the United States finally relinquished control of the canal. This historic handover marked the end of an era and the beginning of a new chapter for Panama. It was a momentous occasion for Panama, a chance to finally chart their own course. The streets were filled with celebrations, and the Panamanian flag waved proudly in the wind, symbolizing newfound independence and national pride. But old habits die hard, and the US has been acting like that ex who keeps showing up uninvited. Despite the official handover, the shadow of US influence lingered, with many Panamanians wary of America's continued interest in their affairs. Enter Marco Rubio, the US Secretary of State, who recently decided to grace Panama with his presence. His visit was seen by many as a reminder of the U.S. quote, "S enduring interest in the region." His mission? To express concerns about Chinese influence and to remind everyone that the US still has a vested interest in the canal. Rubio's statements were clear. The US was watching closely and had no intention of stepping back completely. Panama's response? A polite but firm thanks, but we got this. The Panamanian government, led by President Laurentino Cortizo, was quick to assert its sovereignty. Panama's president, Laurentino Cortizo, has made it clear that his country is nobody's pawn. In his speeches, he emphasized Panama's right to self-determination and its ability to manage its own affairs without external interference. They're calling the shots now, and they're not afraid to stand up to the US or anyone else who tries to push them around. The message from Panama was unequivocal. They were in control and ready to defend their autonomy. It's a bold move, but one that could have major implications for the future of the Panama Canal. As Panama navigates this new era of independence, the world watches closely to see how this small but strategically significant nation will shape its destiny. Enter the dragon: China's growing presence. While the US has been busy reminiscing about the good old days of canal control, China has been quietly making moves of its own. As the second largest user of the Panama Canal, China understands its strategic importance. And they're not just content with being passive bystanders. Chinese companies have been investing heavily in Panama, developing ports, building infrastructure, and strengthening economic ties. It's all part of China's Belt and Road Initiative, a global infrastructure development strategy that has raised eyebrows in Washington. The US sees this as China's attempt to expand its influence, and they're not exactly thrilled about it. But for Panama, it's a delicate balancing act. They need to maintain good relations with both superpowers without becoming beholden to either. It's like walking a tightrope over a pool of geopolitical piranhas. The free ride feud, a diplomatic standoff. If there's one thing that really gets the US riled up, it's the idea of not getting their way. And in the case of the Panama Canal, that means demanding special treatment. Specifically, the US wants free passage for its government vessels. That's right, they want to use the canal without paying tolls, like some kind of maritime freeloaders. Panama, unsurprisingly, is not on board with this idea. They argue that the canal is a vital source of revenue for their country, and everyone has to pay their fair share. The US has countered by claiming that there's a secret agreement that guarantees them free passage. Panama's response? Show me the receipts. Spoiler alert, the receipts don't exist. This diplomatic standoff has further strained relations between the two countries and added another layer of complexity to the Panama Canal saga. America's endgame. What's really at stake? So what's the big deal with the Panama Canal? Why does it matter so much in the grand scheme of things? Why is the US so obsessed with maintaining control over a waterway that's thousands of miles away? The answer lies in its strategic importance. Well, it's not just about nostalgia or a bruised ego. The Panama Canal has been a symbol of American engineering prowess and ambition since its completion. It's about power, economics, and good old-fashioned geopolitics. The canal is a critical juncture in global trade routes, making it a linchpin in international commerce. The Panama Canal is a strategic choke point, a vital artery for global trade. Its control can influence the flow of goods worldwide. Controlling it gives the US leverage over its rivals, especially China. This leverage is not just military but also economic. It also ensures the smooth flow of goods and services, which is crucial for the US economy. Any disruption could have significant repercussions, but as China's influence grows, the US is starting to feel a little uneasy. The balance of power is shifting, and the stakes are getting higher. They're worried about losing their grip on this vital waterway and the power that comes with it. The canal is more than just a passage, it's a symbol of dominance. So, the US is playing hardball using a combination of diplomacy, economic pressure, and good old-fashioned saber-rattling to try and maintain its dominance. This multifaceted approach shows how critical the canal is to US interests. But Panama is pushing back, asserting its sovereignty and refusing to be bullied. The small nation is standing up to the giant, demanding respect and control over its own territory. The future of the Panama Canal hangs in the balance, and the outcome of this geopolitical tug-of-war will have far-reaching consequences for the global order. The world is watching closely as the stakes couldn't be higher.